We don't always notice the exact second a person stops belonging to a room. Sometimes it's small, a laugh that lands wrong, a pause that lasts a beat too long. In Marissa Cole's case, it was a sentence said like a joke, in a house full of people who didn't think they were being cruel. She wasn't telling her story to sound brave. It mattered because it was ordinary in the worst way, one family turning someone into a function, then acting surprised when the function shuts off. This is where Marissa begins. I was standing near the kitchen counter with a paper plate in my hand, pretending I wasn't hungry, pretending I wasn't tired, pretending the noise didn't get to me. Ethan tore the plastic off the phone box like it was Christmas morning. I'd bought it on my account, an installment plan I didn't even think about anymore, because I was always thinking about everyone else. The phone cost $799, not counting the taxes and fees I didn't mention to anyone. Vanessa leaned back on the couch, ankles crossed, scrolling. She didn't look up when her son squealed. "Hold it up," she told him, like she was directing a video. Ethan lifted the phone, grinning. Then he glanced at me, still smiling, like he was about to say something cute. "Dad says if you disappeared, nobody would even care." It landed soft. It still cut. A few people laughed right away. The kind of laugh that means they already agree. Frank, my dad, was by the den doorway with a beer. He chuckled and tipped his chin like Ethan had delivered a good line. "He's not wrong." Vanessa smirked, finally looking at me, like she'd been waiting for it. Diane, my mom, kept stirring something at the stove, shoulders lifting a little, like she'd heard it and decided it wasn't her problem. I nodded, not because I agreed, because nodding was what kept the peace, what kept the room moving. My face felt hot. My hands didn't shake. That was the strange part. Everything in me went quiet. We watched the moment settle in, the way a room can keep laughing while one person goes still. Vanessa clapped once. "All right. Cake time." Someone started passing plates. A cousin asked Frank about work. Diane called out that the candles were ready. The house kept running. Ethan was already tapping the screen, thumbs flying. "It's not turning on." Vanessa sighed like it was my fault. "Did you charge it before you brought it?" "It's fine," I told her. Voice even. "It's new." Frank looked over. "You always make things complicated." I could feel my phone in my pocket. I didn't pull it out right away. I waited until Vanessa turned her back, until the attention shifted, until nobody was looking at me anymore. Then I stepped into the hallway like I was going to the bathroom. My bank app opened with my thumbprint, my cards, the ones I'd added them to, the supplementary lines I'd handed out like bandages, freeze. Then the auto pay list, the standing orders I'd set up from my account to cover what they called temporary, utilities, streaming, the family phone plan, the little monthly transfers that kept Vanessa floating, cancel, one more screen, the carrier, the device on my plan, blacklist IMEI. I stared at the confirmation for a second. My breathing stayed steady. My heart didn't race. It felt like flipping off a light I'd been paying to keep on. When I walked back into the room, Ethan was still frowning at the phone. "It says no service," he muttered. Vanessa's eyes snapped up. "Marissa." I looked at her and let the pause sit there. "I'm going to head out," I said, like it was nothing. Like I was leaving early because I had a long day tomorrow. Frank's mouth twisted. Over a joke. I didn't correct him. I didn't explain. I didn't plead to be understood. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and walked out of the house while the candles burned down behind me. A quiet reminder from us at Revenge Sins if you want more stories told straight. Without the performance, you can subscribe. By the time I got to my car, my phone was already lighting up with notifications, declines, alerts, missed calls. I didn't answer any of them. I drove home with the radio off. Not to be dramatic. I just didn't want another voice filling the space. The car smelled faintly like coffee and old receipts. One of the air vents rattled when I turned onto my street. Little things I'd learned to ignore. The way I ignored a lot of things. My phone kept lighting up in the cup holder. Vanessa's name first, then my dad, then my mom. I didn't pick it up. I set it face down on the passenger seat like it might calm itself if I stopped looking at it. When I got inside my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and leaned my forehead against the door for a second. Not crying, just standing there, feeling my shoulders drop like they'd been holding something heavy for a long time. The phone buzzed again. A voicemail alert, then another. I finally picked it up and opened the banking app. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to see it clearly, without noise. My account, clean, stable. The same balance I always kept, because I hated surprises. Below that, the outgoing transfers. The ones I'd labeled with neutral names so they didn't feel like what they were. Family support, utilities backup, Vanessa Bridge, every month. Between $3,200 and $3,800, depending on what crisis was happening. Rent gaps, insurance add-ons, phone lines, streaming bundles nobody remembered signing up for. Voluntary. All of it. My phone rang again. This time it was my mom. I answered, put it on speaker, set it on the counter. "Marissa," she started, breathy, like she'd been crying for practice. "What's going on with the cards? Frank can't get gas." I opened the fridge, took out a bottle of water. I turned off the supplementary cards. Her silence stretched. I could picture her standing in the kitchen, hand on her chest. "You can't just do that." "I can. They're on my account." That phone for Ethan. She continued, voice sharpening. "Vanessa says it's broken." "It isn't broken." "Then why doesn't it work? I blacklisted the IMEI." Another pause. Longer this time. "You embarrassed her." I twisted the cap off the bottle. "I bought the phone. On my plan." "That's not the point. It is for me." She lowered her voice. "Like we were negotiating. Frank has things going on right now. You know that. I did. I'd known for years. The private loans. The missed payments. The letters he never opened until he needed me to look at them. I'm not sending the monthly stipend anymore," I said. Her breath caught. "You can't just stop." "I already did." The line went quiet. Then I heard Frank in the background, louder than he meant to be. "What did she do now?" My mom covered the phone, but not well enough. I didn't wait for the handoff. "I'm not fixing it this time." Frank's voice came through, sharp and annoyed. "You think you're making a point?" I leaned against the counter, felt the cool edge press into my back. "I think I'm done." "Over something a kid said," he scoffed. I closed my eyes. "Over everything you didn't." Nobody spoke for a beat. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was stunned. "Marissa," my mom tried again, softer. Family helps family. I looked at the screen as I ended the call. Then I set the phone down, face down again, and finally took a drink of water. I slept for maybe 3 hours. Woke up before my alarm with my jaw tight and my phone buzzing itself across the nightstand. Messages stacked up fast. Vanessa first, in bursts. "Why is my card declining? Marissa, this is not funny." "I have a kid." I didn't answer. I showered instead. Let the water run hotter than usual. Stood there until my skin felt almost numb, like my body needed a second to catch up to what my head had already decided. When I stepped out, my phone buzzed again. This time, a notification from my bank. Supplementary card attempt declined. Another one right after. Different merchant. Same result. That part worked instantly. I'd known it would. The other things took longer. That was the part people never understand. Nothing dramatic shuts off in a single night. It frays, it stutters, it sends warnings. I dressed, poured coffee, forgot about it on the counter. By mid-morning, my dad left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it right away. I let it sit there, unopened, like a door I wasn't ready to walk through. At work. My phone stayed face down in my bag. I answered emails, took notes, nodded in meetings, normal things. It felt strange how easily the rest of my life kept moving. At lunch, I finally checked the carrier account. The phone status sat there, clean and final. Device blocked. No service. No data. Vanessa called again while I was looking at it. I answered this time, mostly so it would stop ringing. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" She started, voice sharp and already tired. "I'm at the grocery store. My card got declined in front of everyone. I turned off the supplementary cards. I told her." "You don't get to do that without telling me." "I just did." She laughed, short and bitter. "You can't just pull the rug out like this. You make more money than us. You don't even have kids. That doesn't make my account a family account." She went quiet for a second. I could hear carts rolling, a scanner beeping somewhere nearby. "So what?" she said finally. "You're just done now." I stopped the voluntary support. "That's the same thing. It isn't." She lowered her voice. "Mom says you're being dramatic." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling tile above my desk. A faint crack ran through it, like someone had tried to patch it once and given up. "Tell Mom I'm not fixing this." "You're really doing this," Vanessa said. Not angry now. Something closer to disbelief? "Yes." She hung up without another word. That afternoon, another alert came through. Auto pay failure pending. Not cut yet. Just flagged. I set the phone down and went back to my work. Hands steady. Heart loud. The day moving forward whether anyone approved or not. I didn't go back to my parents' house right away. I drove past it once, kept going, then circled the block like I'd forgotten something. The lights were still on. Cars lined the street the way they always did when people stayed too long and didn't want to leave yet. At home. I pulled the black backpack out of the closet. It was old, scuffed at the corners. I'd used it for work trips years ago, back when I still thought packing light meant I'd be back soon. I sat on the floor and laid everything out. The copies first, not originals. I wasn't trying to burn the house down. Just stop holding it up. Frank's paperwork went on the left. Loan statements, late notices, a repayment schedule he'd never followed all the way through, the kind of documents that came with polite language and quiet threats underneath. Vanessa's stack was thinner but messier. Missed payments. A notice from her landlord that stopped just short of formal eviction. Emails she'd forwarded to me with lines like, "Can you just cover this one? I'll pay you back." She never did. On top, I placed the summary page. One sheet, clean, dates, amounts, what I'd covered, how long. When it stopped, at the bottom, one sentence. "This is not mine to carry anymore." I zipped the backpack and sat there for a minute, hands resting on it, feeling the weight I'd been pretending wasn't there. The drive back was quiet. I parked a little farther down the street than usual and walked the rest of the way. The porch light was still on. Laughter spilled out through the front window. I opened the door without knocking. No one noticed. Frank's voice was coming from the living room, loud and confident, telling the same story he always told when he had an audience. I moved down the hallway and set the backpack by the small table near the stairs. Not hidden. Not center stage. Somewhere it would be found without effort. As I turned to leave, my mom stepped out of the kitchen. "Marissa," she said, surprised. "I thought you left." "I did." She glanced at the backpack. "What's that?" "Something I should have given you a long time ago." Her mouth tightened. "Is this necessary?" I didn't answer that. I picked up my keys from the table and slid them into my pocket. "You're being stubborn," she said, softer now. "You always do this when you're upset." I looked at her, really looked. The familiar lines around her eyes, the way she waited for me to soften first. "I'm not upset." She watched me like she didn't believe it. I walked past her, out the door, and didn't look back to see if she picked up the bag right away or left it where it was. The night air felt cooler than before. Or maybe I was just noticing it now. The first thing that fell apart wasn't dramatic. It was small, quiet. A pause where something usually worked. On Monday morning, My phone buzzed while I was brushing my teeth. An alert from the utilities account. Auto pay failed, not shut off, just flagged. The kind of message that assumes someone will fix it before it matters. I rinsed my mouth and set the phone down. Let it sit there, damp screen catching the bathroom light. By noon, Vanessa called again. Not yelling this time. Breath tight. They posted an eviction notice. She said, not the final one. The warning. I leaned against the window in my office and watched traffic crawl. Okay. That's all you have to say. I'm not sending the money. She laughed once. Sharp. You always do this thing where you pretend you're calm so you don't have to deal with the fallout. I dealt with it for years. She lowered her voice. You can't let my kid see this. I'm not doing anything to him. You know what I mean. I didn't answer. She waited. I could hear paper rustling, maybe the notice in her hand. Mom's freaking out. She added, Dad hasn't slept. I thought about Frank at the kitchen table, papers spread out, the way he'd shove them into a drawer when someone walked in. I'm still not fixing it. She hung up without saying goodbye. That night, my dad left another voicemail. I listened this time. Marissa. He started, slow, careful. You've made your point. We need to talk logistics. Logistics. Like I was a vendor who'd gone rogue. You can't just cut the monthly support without notice. His message continued. That's not how family works. I deleted it. On Wednesday, my mom showed up at my building, not pounding, just standing there when I came out with my trash. She looked tired, not the performative kind, the real kind. Can we talk? She asked. We sat on the bench near the entrance. Someone's dog barked from an upper floor. A delivery truck idled too long. Frank's credit card got declined at the pharmacy. She said, he had to put things back. She said it like it was my responsibility to feel embarrassed for him. The mortgage company called. She went on. They're asking questions. I stopped the voluntary support. I reminded her. She pressed her lips together. You know what happens next. I do. She reached for my hand, then stopped herself. You don't understand how bad this is. I understand exactly how bad it is. I've been covering it. Her voice wavered. He's under a lot of stress. So am I. She looked away, eyes glossy. Vanessa thinks you're doing this to punish us. I shook my head. I stopped enabling it. The word hung there, enabling. She didn't repeat it. That evening, an email came through from the bank. Another auto pay failure pending. Still not shut off. Still giving room. I cooked dinner, ate half of it, put the rest in the fridge. My phone buzzed again. A text from Frank this time. Short. We need to fix this. I read it once. Then again. Outside. Someone laughed in the parking lot. A car door slammed. Life moved on, loud and ordinary. I set the phone face down and turned off the light. They didn't give me much time to settle into the quiet. On Friday evening, just as I was locking my office drawer, my phone buzzed again. Not a call this time. A message from the building manager. Your parents are downstairs. I stared at the screen for a second longer than necessary. Then I stood up, grabbed my bag, and took the stairs instead of the elevator. I didn't want to arrive already trapped. They were in the lobby, Frank pacing near the front desk, Diane sitting stiffly on one of the chairs, hands folded too tight in her lap. A security guard stood a few steps away, pretending not to listen. Frank spotted me first. His face shifted, relief flashing before irritation rushed in to cover it. There you are, he said. You couldn't pick up the phone. I told you I wasn't fixing it. That's not what this is, he replied quickly. We need to talk like adults. The guard cleared his throat. Sir, you can't block the entrance. Frank shot him a look, then lowered his voice. We'll step outside. We moved to the sidewalk. Cars passed. Someone laughed somewhere behind us. The city didn't care what we were doing. This has gone far enough, Frank said. The bank called again. They're asking about missed support. I stopped the voluntary financial support. You don't get to just decide that. I did. Diane stood, smoothing the front of her coat. Marissa, honey, this isn't about winning. It's not about that. She stepped closer. Your father's debt-to-income ratio is underwater. You know that. I know because I kept it from sinking. Frank scoffed. Don't talk like you're the only one who's ever helped. I met his eyes. Then handle it. He leaned in, voice sharp. You're being selfish. The guard shifted closer. I didn't step back. I'm being done. Diane reached out, touched my arm lightly, like she was afraid I'd disappear if she pressed too hard. You don't have to do this alone. I already was. That landed heavier than shouting would have. Frank exhaled through his nose, trying a different tone. Let's meet. Just you and me. Somewhere neutral. No scenes. I didn't answer right away. There's a game this weekend, he added. College stadium. Halftime. We talk. We figure it out. I watched a bus pull up, doors hissing open. People climbed off, lives intact. I'll think about it. Diane's shoulders relaxed a fraction. Frank nodded like he'd secured something. Good, he said, because this can't keep going. I stepped back toward the building. It already is. The guard opened the door for me without comment. Inside, the lobby lights hummed softly. When I turned around, they were still standing there, side by side, watching the entrance like it might open again on its own. I didn't answer Frank right away. That night, I made pasta from a box and ate it standing at the counter, left the pan in the sink, sat on the couch with my shoes still on, phone in my hand, screen dark. It felt strange how quiet everything was when no one needed anything from me. His text came in around 9. College game this weekend, halftime. We talk. No drama. I stared at it longer than I wanted to admit. The phrasing was careful, neutral, like he was asking for coffee, not asking me to step back into a mess he couldn't hold up anymore. Another message followed, softer. Just you and me. I'll bring the paperwork. The paperwork. My jaw tightened. I typed, erased, typed again. Where? He replied almost instantly, like he'd been waiting with the phone in his hand. Stadium by campus, section near the concourse. Easy to talk there. I set the phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. A faint water stain above the couch. I'd noticed it months ago and never called the landlord. It hadn't felt urgent. Vanessa tried once more that night. A voicemail this time. Her voice came out flat, tired. This is getting bad. Dad's losing it. You're really going to let this blow up. I deleted it without finishing. Saturday came faster than I expected. I put on jeans and a plain jacket. No logo. No statement. Grabbed my keys and stood by the door, hand on the knob, breathing once, twice. At the stadium, the crowd noise rolled in waves, people in team colors, laughing, spilling drinks, shouting names of players they didn't know. Normal chaos. Frank texted my location before I saw him. By the rail. I've got your bag. That made me stop. Your bag. I scanned the concourse and spotted him near a concrete pillar, shoulders hunched, black backpack looped over one arm like it might walk away if he let go. I didn't wave. I walked over slowly, the noise swallowing everything else. He looked up when I was close enough to hear him without shouting. Thanks for coming, he said, like this was a favor I'd done him. I nodded once and waited for him to keep talking. Frank didn't suggest seats. He stayed in the concourse, back to a concrete pillar, like he wanted walls on both sides of him. The backpack hung from his forearm, the strap twisted tight around his wrist. Up close, he looked older than he had in the lobby. Not frail, just worn out in a way he couldn't cover with volume. He nodded toward the bag. I found your little surprise. I kept my hands in my jacket pockets. It wasn't a surprise. It was a handoff. He let out a short laugh that didn't match his face. You always talk like you're in charge. A group of students shoved past us, laughing, one of them balancing a tray of nachos. Cheese dripped onto the concrete. Nobody slowed down. Frank waited until the flow thinned. Then he shifted closer. Voice lower. "You can't leave me holding this," he said. "You don't get to drop a mess like that and disappear." I didn't disappear. You know what I mean. His gaze flicked around, checking who might be listening. "You've got everyone panicking. Your mother's sick over it. Vanessa's losing her mind." I watched him hold the bag like a lifeline. "You brought it here. I brought it because you need to explain it." His fingers tapped the fabric. Fast. "These papers make it look like I'm some kind of criminal. They're your statements." He shook his head. "You don't understand how this works. The bank calls. The landlord calls. People ask questions. You were handling it." I felt a slow, steady heat behind my ribs. Not rage. Something cleaner. I stopped the voluntary financial support. I said, "That's all that happened." His mouth tightened. "You keep saying that like it's a magic phrase." "It's the truth." Frank pulled the backpack up onto the ledge beside him and unzipped it. He dug in like he expected to find a trapdoor. Papers shifted, envelopes, the summary page on top, still flat, still neat. He grabbed it and held it up between us. This is you trying to make me look bad. It's a timeline. It's you rewriting the story." His voice rose. Then he caught himself and dropped it again. "You've been moving money around. That's what this looks like." I didn't blink. "Those are transfers from my account to yours and to Vanessa, labeled, dated." You made it sound like some monthly stipend. He snapped, then swallowed. Quieter. "We're family." It wasn't a stipend. It was help. It was a financial infusion you came to expect. Frank's nostrils flared. He glanced past my shoulder, like he wanted an exit that didn't exist. "You think you can just cut it off and walk away clean?" I did walk away clean. His eyes sharpened. "You're not clean. You left this here because you wanted power." I took a slow breath. The air smelled like fried food and beer, stale and sweet at the same time. Somewhere behind us, a whistle blew. The crowd noise surged and dipped like the building was breathing. "You're holding that bag like it's evidence against me." I said, "It isn't." Frank's hand tightened on the paper. "Then what is it?" "It's your life." I told him. "On paper. The part you kept pretending wasn't happening." He leaned in, voice trembling. "So what? You're going to let us drown. I'm not saving you anymore." "You owe us," he hissed. I kept my voice level. "No." His hand lifted, not all the way, like he was about to grab my sleeve. He stopped when someone walked close enough to glance at us. He froze in place, jaw clenched, then dropped his arm to his side like nothing happened. I reached out. Not for the bag, just the top sheet. He didn't let go at first. For a second, we both held the same piece of paper. Then his grip loosened, like his hand was tired. I folded the summary page once, pressed it back into his palm, and closed his fingers around it. "This is your life," I said again. Quieter. I just stopped paying for it. Frank stared at his own hand like it had betrayed him. His voice came out thin. "You can't do this." I looked at him steadily. "You taught Ethan I was disposable. Now live like it." The halftime horn blared. People surged around us again, shoulder to shoulder. Frank stayed pinned to the pillar, backpack at his side, the paper crushed in his fist. I turned into the crowd and walked away without running, without looking back, letting the noise swallow the rest of whatever he wanted to call after me. I didn't hear from them after the game. Not that night. Not the next morning. My phone stayed still on the kitchen counter while I made coffee, rinsed the mug, left it to dry. The silence felt different this time. Not loaded. Just there. A few days later, an email came through from my dad. No subject line. Just a block of text that tried to sound reasonable and failed. I read the first 2 sentences, then archived it without replying. I didn't feel angry. Mostly tired. The good kind. The kind that comes after you stop running. Vanessa texted once. A single line. Mom says you've gone too far. I didn't answer that either. I signed up for a night certification course the following week. Something practical. Something I'd put off because there was always a bill to cover or a situation to smooth over. The first night, I sat in the back row with a notebook I hadn't used yet and listened. Nobody there knew my family. Nobody needed anything from me. On my walk home, the air was cool and quiet. I passed the corner where a street musician sometimes played. He wasn't there that night. Just an empty case leaning against the wall. I kept walking anyway. It took me a while to understand what had shifted. Not with them. With me? For a long time. Marissa Cole only existed in relation to other people's needs, their emergencies, their excuses, their voices in my head telling me what I owed. When that stopped, I didn't disappear. I showed up. Slowly, unevenly, but on my own terms. If this story stayed with you, you can follow revenge sins for more told this way quietly, without spectacle. That's all from us. This was Marissa's voice.